Hey, what's going on, guys? The Christmas banner is finally here. It looks like we have Tharja, Robin, Chrom, and Lissa. I just want to say before we start the review, don't forget that there will be a Legendary Hero Fest banner supposedly coming out soon. So if you want to summon for FEHeroes or any of the other 5-star heroes included in that banner at 8%, then you should probably skip this banner and save your orbs. I don't know which heroes will be included in that banner other than FEHeroes. However, this Christmas banner is out for 2 weeks, so you should probably wait until Intelligent Systems gives us some more details. Also, Soleil has been dropped down to 4-star rarity as most of us predicted, so you can get her more easily now. And one more thing, there was someone that created a unit builder tool and posted it on Reddit like a week ago. It's really neat and handy. I'm going to start using that for these banner videos from now on, so you guys don't have to wait for me to make a separate video for builds. Sometimes I can't even get those videos out because I'm busy and those videos take a while to edit. But yeah, the downside is that the build segment will be less in depth, but the trade-off is that you get to see them earlier. I don't know, I'll mess with the video format for the future video so the video doesn't get crazy long or anything. But enough said, the first hero is Tharja. She's our first red armored unit ever so far, and at max level her stats are 43 HP, 34 attack, 18 speed, 34 defense, and 36 resistance. Amazing stat line. Almost everything is above average, which isn't that surprising considering that she is an armored unit and armored units tend to be like that. Speed is the only low stat, but because she has such a high defense and resistance stat, her low speed will work in her favor. It allows her to get doubled more often, which will grant her more special charges, similar to the playstyle of other slow mages like a Julia, Henry, Sophia, and so on. With these kind of stats, I believe the best weapon for her will be an owl tome. Armored units tend to stick together a lot more often than the other movement types. So let's say you run 3 ward armors and owl tome and place your units in a T-shaped Tetris formation, then Tharja receives a total of 6 attacks, 6 speed, 18 defense, and 18 resistance, which is a lot of stats. However, if one of your armor units is running armor march, then it'd be a lot better to just run hone or fortified cavalry instead of ward armor. The other tome worth considering is her default tome. It grants her +2 in every stat besides HP during combat if foe initiates combat. It only works on the enemy phase, and the effect is much worse than the owl tomes, assuming that you are capable of getting the full effect from it. Although Candelabra is better if you are using Tharja outside of Armor Emblem, like on a mixed team or something. If you happen to pull Tharja, then I wouldn't worry about swapping her tome out. Her default tome is upgradable and you should give her the defense refinement. Special is Iceberg, and we'll talk more about it in a little bit. A slot is Close Counter, a very nice default skill to have considering that it's one of the harder skills for players to get their hands on, and it even synergizes extremely well with her B slot skill, Vengeful Fighter. It's a new B skill exclusive to armor units only. If unit's HP is equal or above than 50% and foe initiates combat, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. Grants special cooldown charge +1 per attack, and it does not stack. Think of it like Quick Repulse 5 with a Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade effect with no stat comparison requirement. It's absolutely ridiculous. Keep in mind that the extra charge effect is written the same way as Heavy Blade and Flashing Blades, so I would assume that she only receives the special charge whenever she attacks. It's not like Steady Breath where the user gains special charges for both the units and the enemy's attack. But anyways, this B slot determines what special she should run. If you keep this skill, which I don't know why you wouldn't, then here's how the combat scenario usually pans out. She's guaranteed to get doubled on the enemy phase because she is super duper slow. So the enemy attacks her, she gains 1 charge, Tharja counterattacks, gains 2 charge, enemy attacks again, gains another 1 charge. Then finally Tharja is able to counterattack again because of Vengeful Fighter's effect. So she gains 4 charges before her last counterattack, which means that she should run a 4-charge special for a more 1-round KOing potential, or a 5-charge special if your Tharja is built to take out the enemy in 2 attacks. Something like Glaciers would proc on the final attack and could potentially be used to nuke blue units, or go with a 5-charge special like Aether so she can save the special for the following player phase to nuke a full health enemy and regain some health back to ensure that she can continue using Vengeful Fighter's effect. Or go with a 5-charge special like Aether so she can save the special for the following player phase to nuke a full health unit and regain some health back to ensure that she can continue using Vengeful Fighter's effect. C-Slot is Red Tome Veiler, amazing farming skill. Once you get to use a Veiler skill, you can't go back. Farming without Veiler and double SP feels like it's such a grind. The Warriors maps are back for a few weeks, so on the weekends, slap on these Veiler skills and just grind on the second Camilla map, and your units will receive 24 SP per kill. If you are a big Armor Emblem fanatic, then Tharja should be your #1 unit to go for in this banner. She's the only red armor unit so far, has an amazing stat line, comes out of the box with a very expensive and a synergistic default skill set, and last but not least, she even has a Veiler skill. For boons, you can't go wrong with attack, defense, or resistance. Any of those three are great. Best Bane I would say is speed or HP. Speed is definitely her best Bane because she doesn't really benefit off of a boon and speed. As for builds, you don't have to spend too much resources on her. All you have to really do is give her an assist skill like Swap, then remove Iceberg and give her either Glacies or Aether as a special. C-Slot is flexible, you can run Armor March, Home Buffs, Ward Armor, Ploy skills, or Threat and Resistance as a budget option. I'd recommend Threat and Resistance or Resistance Ploy as a C-Slot option because she is using close counter, so she isn't able to use a stat boosting A-Slot skill, so the debuff from those two skills will help her deal more damage. Next up is Robin. He's a blue armored lance unit, 45 HP, 35 attack, 34 speed, 35 defense, and 25 resistance. Basically a blue Amelia. Now there's a fast armor unit for reds, greens, and blues. He's a total different unit from FE. You can't really compare them. It's like comparing Chrom to Amelia. In my opinion, I think slow armor units are better for triple ward armor teams, while the faster ones are better on armor march display buff teams. My reason is because slower units generally work best on the enemy phase, while the faster ones can be built many ways that can excel in both phases. Armor march gives them the same mobility as a normal infantry unit, so the armor units with the buff has an easier time to initiate on the player phase. But anyways, back to his stats. There's not much to really say about his stats. Despite his resistance only being at 25, he does have enough speed to prevent doubles, and he has fairly decent health, so he's actually not that bad for mage tanking, especially if we take buffs into account. His weapon is Tannin Boon. All of these weapons have the same effect, so I won't talk too much about it. If you keep this weapon, you should build Robin for the enemy phase, but if you swap it out for something like Slaying Lance, then you can go for enemy phase or player phase. Assist is Reciprocal Aid. I see the synergy here with the Brazen skill, but I don't like the idea for setting up for Brazen skills. Although Reciprocal Aid does serve other purposes like healing allies, I'd still rather use Swap or even Reposition. Reposition is not that bad when used alongside Armor March. Alright, A skill is Brazen Attack Speed 3, so there's been a lot of hype over this skill. People are going nuts about it, and honestly, it's overrated. I've seen comments about how this skill power creeps life and death and the other offensive stats boosting A skills, which is completely false. Here's my opinion and my perspective. The arena meta is revolved around one round KOing. In most situations, it's kill or be killed, especially if you consider the fact that in arena, we aren't playing on an even playing field, assuming you play advanced mode. It always matches you up with opponents with higher merged units. Let's say you give this skill to a sword unit that normally runs life and death. Now that unit isn't even able to win the mirror matchup because the unit basically doesn't have an A-slot skill with the first attack. Normally you could just engage and each unit would get one attack each, then you could dance and finish the enemy off, or you can simply just bait the opposing enemy first and finish them off on the flying player phase. With Brazen, you can't do that. It'll require a little bit of setup, or it requires the unit to fight a favorable matchup first. But then some of you guys are like, hey Brotel, you can just use Ardent Sacrifice once to drop them down to 80% HP. Don't do that. I don't get why you wouldn't just use Life and Death or Swift Sparrow. With either of those skills, you can just one round KO the first enemy, then drop low enough naturally to use Desperation and take out a second enemy. With Ardent Sacrifice, you are just going to waste turns for setup just so you can even one round KO that first unit. It's not the same thing as using Ardent Sacrifice for Blade Tone Mages or Brave Bow Archers. Those units are setting up for Desperation, not a stat boosting A skill. In most situations, they can already one round KO without Desperation. Desperation just allows them to one round KO unfavorable matchups like Nino versus Ike. So that's my little rant, I guess, about the power creep thing. All of that aside, it's not a bad skill. It's similar to the Defiant skills, except that the Defiant skills are display or active buffs, while this one is a combat or invisible buff. You can stack any kind of buffs with the Brazen skills, while only combat or invisible buffs can stack with the Defiant ones. You can't just slap this skill on anyone, it has to be on someone with good bulk and survivability. I could even see sword users with an effective against weapon use brazen skills because they don't necessarily need the extra stats to take out whatever their weapon is effective against, especially if the weapon has the effect refinement that nullifies buffs. C skills Armor March. This is the main reason why you should pull for Robin. Mobility is very important as it allows your units to get into position to bait. The less turns it takes you to take out the enemies, the easier the rest of your match will be. So Robin is a good pickup if you are looking for a solid blue armor unit. I prefer the triple ward armor setup, so FE is still my main blue armor unit of choice. But if you want a faster paced armor emblem team, then Robin is perfect for that. Armor Slayer can now be upgraded to Armor Smasher, so you may see some of those in arena, so having a blue armor unit on your armor emblem team is important for those situations. As for boons and banes, I think plus attack, speed, defense, or resistance are all good boons, but speed would probably be the best out of the four. Resistance is a +4 mega boon, so he goes from 25 to 29, and that's good enough for a distant counter anti-mage set when used alongside multiple ward armor buffs and a plus resistance weapon refinement. Best bane is probably HP despite it being a super bane. Minus resistance is another good bane if you don't plan on using Robin for mage tanking. Robin's weapon is an enemy phase weapon, so you want to build him for the enemy phase. There's only a few options in my opinion. There's Quick Repose, Vengeful Fighter, and Vantage. For his budget set with Quick Repose 2, if your Robin is minus speed, then you can consider using Ignis instead of Bonfire and refine his weapon with defense. You can also run Vantage as it has synergy with Brazen Attack Speed. The last build, the one with Distant Counter and Quick Repose 3, that set cannot survive the strongest Reinhardt, but there's no reason to build for Reinhardt because if you are running an armor emblem team, you should always run an anti-blue mage unit, whether it's Sheena or a green mage. If you build Robin just to counter and survive Reinhardt, then it will worsen his other matchups. Next is Green Axe Armored Chrom, 51 HP, 40 attack, 19 speed, 35 defense, and 29 resistance. To simply put it, he's basically a better green FE. 1 more HP, same attack, 3 less speed, 2 more defense, and 6 more resistance. Most of you guys are probably going to ask Hector or Chrom. It's hard for me to say that he replaces Hector when Hector has Quick Repose 2 built into his weapon. I mean, if you give Chrom Distant Counter and Quick Repose 3, he functions similar to Hector. However, units with legendary weapons always have an edge over the ones that don't because they have potential to grow in the future. When new B-slot skills are released, then Hector's skill set gets a bit more depth, while Chrom's skill set is still, shallow, I guess. I would say Chrom is a lot more flexible in terms of his skill set. He still needs a bit more resistance before he can start safely taking doubles from mages. He's not quite Tharja status yet. If you happen to get a plus resistance Chrom, then a weapon refinement and resistance is something to consider. Like I said earlier, he's basically a green FE, so he can run the same skill sets as her. Weapon is Sack of Gifts. Great weapon to use alongside triple ward armor teams. Refine it with either defense or resistance. Also good for memes because that sprite is godlike. Assist is pivot or swap are all good choices for armored units. It's up to personal preference. New A skill is Brazen Attack Defense. If unit's HP is equal or less than 80% at the start of combat, grants attack and defense +7 during combat. There's a little bit of synergy here with Worry Fighter. Worry Fighter makes sure that Chrom doesn't get 1-round KOs so he can activate the Brazen effect. With triple ward armor buffs, I'm sure that Chrom is able to survive with his health in between 50% and 80%. If he does, then he's going to be one hard fella to take down. Someone as slow as Chrom without Quick Repose aren't reliable 1-round KOers, so the Brazen skills are a perfect fit for them as it gives them the potential to one-hit KO enemies. B skill is Worry Fighter. There's a few options here. Worry Fighter for survivability or Quick Repose, but it depends on the A slot skill. I probably wouldn't recommend swapping it out. I think Worry Fighter is good enough. So Chrom faces a lot of competition for the green armor slot. There's Hector, Amelia, and Halloween Henry if you happen to get him a couple months ago. They all have different traits, so it all comes down to what you require for your armor emblem team. Best boon for him will be attack, defense, or resistance. The best bane is of course speed. The second would be HP. Budget set is just going to be his default set with Bonfire. C-slot and seals are flexible, but you can give him ward armor, threat and defense, or threat and attack. For seals, there's Panic Ploy, attack smoke, close defense, and maybe even brash assault to be honest. There's a second build with Slaying Hammer. You are going to end up facing a lot of armor emblem teams if you are running one yourself. Most armor emblem teams run 2 greens, but I wouldn't be surprised if I start seeing Robin with FE nowadays. So that's a pocket build just in case you start seeing a bunch of armor emblem teams. And the last build is pretty generic, but it's an anti-range set. One thing you could change is the C slot. You can swap out ward armor for Panic Ploy. that'll reduce a lot of damage from buffed up Reinhardts and other Blade Tone mages. The last unit of the banner is Lissa. She's also a green armor unit, 43 HP, 33 attack, 30 speed, 35 defense, and 34 resistance. Very similar to Sheena. They practically have the same amount of bulk. Sheena has more HP but less defense and resistance, lower attack by 3 points with 5 lower speed. There's not much to say about her stats. Speed isn't good enough to prevent doubles without a speed boon, but with that kind of bulk she probably wants to allow doubles, so minus speed is probably preferred. Weapon is Handbell. If you plan to keep this weapon, then the defense or resistance refinement is what I would recommend. Bonfire is her special. It's actually perfect to use alongside her B passive. Her new B skill is Bold Fighter 3. If unit initiates combat, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. Grants special cooldown charge +1 per attack. Alright, so with Bonfire, Lissa will proc it every second hit against enemies that can counter. 4 charge specials get a little wonky unless she has Quick Impulse. With Brave Axe and Quick Impulse, she'll proc Bonfire twice in one fight. As much as I hate slapping brave weapons on armor units, it is something to consider. She has an enemy phase weapon with a player phase B skill, so one or the other needs to go. The most optimal weapon will probably be Slaying Axe with Ignis. I feel as though Lissa isn't worth getting for her stats because you can just run Sheena and get the similar end results if we're talking about an anti-mage set. The only reason you will want Lissa is for her Bold Fighter skill, and I would recommend having someone with Armor March on the team if you want to effectively use Lissa as a player phase unit so she's able to close the distance. She does outclass Sheena, especially in BST, but if you are trying to climb arena ranks, then Sheena would still be the better hero to go with because she's summonable as a 4-star unit and can easily be merged, while Lissa is a seasonal and limited edition unit. Anywho, best Bane is attack, defense, or resistance. Any of those are fine. Best Bane is speed, then HP. Builds are pretty straightforward and obvious. I think the skills that synergizes with Bold Fighter are the ones that grants more attack, so you can give Lissa Death Blow 3 or attack +3 in the A slot, and for the seal she'll want attack +3. Another build is the same set but with Brave Axe Plus. You can run it with Bonfire and Quick Impulse for double Bonfire procs, or go with attack +3 Sacred Seal with Gale Force. If you are planning on running this Brave Axe Gale Force set, then you want to make sure your Armor Emblem team is running 1 Hone Armor and 1 Armor March buff. The extra mobility from Armor March will be very important. And the last build is of course a pretty generic anti-range set. Not much to talk about there. So my ranking for this banner from best to worst is Tharja, Robin, Chrom, then Lissa. Tharja is the obvious first because she's the only red armor unit so far with a solid stat line and a near perfect default set. And don't forget about Red Tone Veiler, she has that as well. Robin is second mainly because he has Armor March. Armor March is a hard skill to obtain, so anytime it's available you should try to get your hands on it. He is also the only fast blue armor unit, so his stats uniqueness is valuable. Chrom and Lissa aren't as valuable as the other two because the green armor slot is already filled with some of the best units, but Lissa's Bold Fire 3 is an extremely powerful skill, so Lissa can actually be like the second best unit in this banner. It could be like Tharja, Lissa, Robin, then Chrom. All of that aside, they are all extremely good and you can't really complain about any of them. I'm not really a fan of armored and seasonal units, so this banner was an easy pass for me. The new skills don't really excite me either, since the best skill in the banner is armor exclusive and the one I'm referring to is Vengeful Fighter. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider subscribing. There's going to be more Fire Emblem Heroes content coming your way. Good luck on your summons. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.